Because I have to have that for Monica.
Well, I came home from work. It was pouring down rain. My kitchen was leaking. I grabbed a pan. I put it under that one. Before it was over with, I had about every pan I had sitting all around the kitchen. It was leaking in one spot and in another. First thing you know, I had about a dozen places it was leaking. And I said, in the middle of it all, my sister called. And she said, what's the matter? I said, my kitchen is leaking all over the place. Next thing you know, her and Bowdon came in the door. And Tammy was dating Chris Quackenbush. It was lightning and thundering, and here Bowdon and Chris got up on the roof, heated up tar or whatever it was in a big 5-gallon tin, and Ned's up there pouring it, and I was down here telling them it's going to get electrocuted because it was on an aluminum ladder. Anyway, they got most of the leaks stopped, and Bowdon told me, says, we'll take care of it in the morning. I had no money. I had money to buy food and stuff, but no extra money. They went down to Butler County Lumber, got roll roofing and nails, and Chris Quackenbush and Bowdon had the roof on my kitchen by the time I got home from work that day.
Do you ever? Where's Chris Quackenbush?
In Florida. The last time I talked to him, he was in Florida. Yeah. And then Tammy's old boyfriend, the one she hit in the elbow with the pan and dent in my pan, he stopped by one night. He was going over to his dad's, and he turned down here. He said, I saw you sitting out there. And here Tammy just happened to stop by. She was just getting off work. And sat out there. He came up and gave me a big hug and everything. And I mentioned something about her hitting him with a kettle. And I says, and I don't have it now, but she does. I said, every time I get that pan out, I think of you.
What'd she hit him for?
They got into a fight about something, and I think she was washing dishes, and she hit him with it. It was the one that went to the double boiler. She still has them. And he laughed, and he was going over to see his dad, and he was telling us about his son, so hooked on heroin. And he said, no, I don't dare tell my dad because it would kill him. I think he said his dad's like 95 now.
Wow.
But he's an electrician. And he said that his son lives with his mother, and said he stole her credit card and put $5,000 on it. And he said, I didn't have to, but I felt obligated to give it back to her. He said, so I worked extra jobs and eventually paid her back. Said because it wasn't her fault that it happened. I told him, I said, the anytime you're over this way, just stop and see me.
What was his name?
Tony McGee.
Oh, I remember Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's real nice looking guy.
Didn't he used to have long hair at one time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've got a picture of him and Tammy.
He still got pretty hair.
Did he go with Tammy to a dance or something? I've got a picture of them together. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be it. I was wrong. And then the little Bowdon that worked out the store, he was just crazy about her. And he finally wrangled a date with her. Anyway, she came home and she was all upset. She said he didn't know what to do with his hands. He said, she slammed my car door so hard, says I thought it was coming off the hinges. He said, boy, did I ever mess up. Every time I go in the store, if he was there and I saw him, he'd always ask me about her. Then I thought about Lonnie. when he started working there, and he had the eyes for Diane DeMolay. And one day he was getting all ready for work, and boy, he dressed up real slick. He wore his little penny loafers, and they was just a shining, and he had on brown pants and a kind of a tan colored shirt, and his tie, and he looked like he was going to a dance or something. I said, time you get off your feet is going to be killing you. Well, nothing ever went from that. They became good friends and went out partying together. And she still ain't married. She lived with this guy, Butch Henson. She lived with him and had a son by him. She got a big tombstone out at Greenwood. Right there when you come in the gate and you turn to go to Daddy's grave, well, there's a big tombstone. She got her and him tombstone together. And she always goes and decorates his grave.
Oh, he died?
Yeah. And so now she's dating Kenny Carpenter, and they're living together. And I says, well, do I hear any wedding bells in the near future? She says, well, I don't think so. But all the guys, after Butch died, all the guys was after her. She didn't have nothing to do with them.
Yeah, because they came together to your birthday. I remember seeing them.
Yeah. And Kenny and her, they've been together now for, I don't know how long. They started going to church out Princeton Pike. There's a bunch of them started going to church out there. And I worked with her grandma. Her grandma was Catherine Gilmore.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And Catherine Gilmore was about 6 inches wide. And there's Catherine Meeker, about 2 feet wide. The first day I started, I went in supposed to be for training for 2 hours. And Jean Cook had Tammy and Lonnie. Well, they put me on the very end register, and our head cashier at that time was down there with me for a little while. Next thing you know, she was gone, and I looked up, and there was people, I think they was lined up back to the meat department. And I kept ringing them up, and I didn't know, that's when we had to keep track of, I didn't know how to do the refunds for the deposit on the bottles and stuff. And so I just wrote it down on a piece of paper. I pulled out a piece of tape and wrote it down on a piece of paper. And my 2 hours was up. So I called the office and I told them, I said, I'm going to have to leave. I said, I told the babysitter I'd only be gone for 2 hours. And so they asked me if I could call her and see if I could extend her services. So I did, and she said it was fine. We got so busy, people lined up like crazy. And I don't know how I did it, but my till balanced.
When did you start at Kroger's?
The first time was when you was a senior or junior, because your dad never wanted me to work. And then you wanted to go to college, and I talked him into it, and they kept asking me every time I go out, Kroger's the manager say, won't you come work for us? Won't you come work for us? And that's when they couldn't get anybody to work. And we was eating dinner one night and the phone rang. And it was a manager. And he asked me, he says, you're in here all the time. He says, are you sure you don't need a job? And I told him, I says, well, I've got a son that hoping to go to college, and I said we could use the money. I said, but my husband really doesn't want me to work. Well, then I talked to your dad about it, and he agreed that I could go to work part-time as long as I worked while you were in school. So I went out and I told them, I said, I've got 4 kids. And so they worked around my schedule. The only time they wasn't going to work around my schedule was when Rusty was in that championship dive meet. And we had a new manager, And I was supposed to get off early so I could go see him. That's when they had that, what was the name of that country club that they were having to meet at? And anyway, he decided I wasn't going to leave. He said, you can't leave. And I told him, I said, you just watch me. I took my till out, I counted it, took it up to the office, handed it to him. He said, if you leave, he said, it's your job. I said, that's okay. I was looking for one. I says, when I found this one or something like that. I left, and so I thought, well, and I miss Rusty diving. And I think that was the first time he didn't come in first in his division in the big competitions. He says, I kept looking for you, and I kept looking for you. I was so mad. Next day, well, I thought, well, I'll find another job. There's Liberal, and there's Woolco, and all them that's close to home. And next thing you know, my phone ringing. Want to know if I was coming into work. And I can't think of that manager's name at that time. I said, he told me yesterday if I left, I had no job. Then he got on the phone. We need you. How soon can you be here? And I went to work, and they didn't try to pull the wool over my eyes anymore. And I told this one girl that started there, she was in the middle of a divorce. She had no money. And I said, Donna, whatever you do, don't let them know that you need the money. I said, because they'll wrestle around with that schedule. I says, and give you as few hours as they possibly can. I said, they'll work you to death to start. And I says, then after that, I said, they'll fool with that schedule. And I showed her how the hours that she could claim. And they did exactly that. They cut her hours down. I think she was getting like 6 or 7 hours a week, and she was so upset and everything, didn't know what she was going to do. I said, I told you, you don't let them know that. I said, because they'll work around that schedule. And she stayed and she hung it out. But she put her application in several different places, and she went to work. She quit. She didn't give them any notice. She handed in her uniform, told them to kiss her ass. And away she went. She works for Dr. Savage. Last time I saw her, she was still working for him. And she said that she loved it. But I knew how they worked them schedules. And just like I told Mikey, I says, anybody that they hire after you've been hired, I said, you look at that schedule, if they got hours, they cut your hours down, you don't have it. I said, if you look down, you see that schedule, if they've got hours, you can claim them. I asked him the other day if he had a union book because I wanted to read it. And I remember one time when Dave Aston was our manager, and he was married to Bonnie Lou's daughter. And I helped out in the office from time to time, and they kept asking me to train to be an officer, and I told them no. I said, I don't want that. I've got enough responsibility at home. I don't need any more than what I've got. But I would help them out. And Dave Aston, he called me up in the office one day, and I had claimed somebody's hours, and he was all upset about it and everything, you know. And they was in a different department, and I didn't know anything about that department, and I told him I can sure learn. And I told, and our union book at that time was about as big as a little pocket notebook or something. And I'll never forget, our union rep told me, he said, you carry this just like you carry a Bible. I kept it in my pocket all the time. And Dave started telling me this and that, and I said, well, my union tells me that I can claim these hours, and I says, and I'm not changing my mind on claiming them. Well, he took that book out of my hand and threw it in the garbage can. And after he got done talking to me and he seen he wasn't getting anywhere, he says, okay, you can go, just forget it. And I says, well, how about my union book? And he said, well, get it. And I said, no, you threw it in the garbage can, you get it. And I stood there till he reached down and got it. Well, then, wasn't too long after that, they called me to help up in the office, and I was helping up in the office, and he got a phone call, and I called him on the intercom, told him he had a phone call on the line, so-and-so. Well, a few minutes later, he bounced up into the cashier's office, and he says, Colleen, he said, if my wife calls, would you tell her that I'm in a business meeting? And I said, no. And he says, what do you mean, no? I says, well, everyone in this whole store knows you're having an affair with whoever it was at the time. And I said, that's one thing I'm not going to do is lie for you. Well, he didn't like that one bit, but he let it be known around the store. It got back to me that he said, well, don't ask Colleen any favors because she ain't going to lie. And then he would bring his wife and his little boy into the store and just act like they was all lovey-dovey. And he was a real good-looking guy. And I told him one day, I said, you just make me sick.
Who was it? David Asplin?
David Ashton.
Ashton.
Yeah. But he had an affair. He had about 10 different girls on the string, and this one girl worked in the deli. I just told her she was crazy about him, and she was married. And I said, you're just wasting your time. I said, he's just using you. But the hardest one I ever had to confront was Chris Trumbull. And his wife was cheating on him, and it was just breaking my heart. Because I truly loved Chris Trumbull. As Donnie and Lonnie always said, Mom thought he had wings. And when she was cheating on him, and the thing of it was, the guy she was cheating with was our night crew leader, ugly as mud, had a wife and 3 kids and one on the way. So, anyway, Maggie would come in the store. She was working at another store by this time. She had gotten transferred out, and I think the reason they transferred her was because management knew what was going on. She would come in the store at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and bring him stuff. And she would always look at me and just kind of turn her head like she was invisible. I didn't see her. And it was just eating my heart out, eating my heart out. I thought, why is she doing this to him? And I knew how crazy Chris was about her. But I kind of kept my mouth shut. But then us people that work night shift, and I was the only female, the rest of them was all males. We wanted to do something. So we all got together and we decided we was going to have a contest. And we was going to have all the employees vote on the couple of the year. And we had Jeff and Chris's wife, Maggie. We had their name on the list as a couple. They had my name on the list with Bob Williams. They went on down the line with all the people that was dating each other. And they posted this, put it on a piece of poster board and put it up by the time clock. Vote on the couple of the year. And anyway, the couple that won got to go out to breakfast, lunch, or dinner with their mate. And night crew was going to pay for it. Well, everybody just thought it was hilarious. Till this one woman, she had transferred when they closed the Indiana store. She transferred down here, and she had worked with Jeff over there because that's where he came from. And she knew him and his wife. She said, the first thing I know, I'm getting a call from his wife. Could you tell me what's going on down there? She said, and I pretended like I didn't know a thing. And so then his wife comes in the store and she sees our big poster board. Well, needless to say, he had to leave. And he came in to work the next night and it looked like a tiger had a hold of him. He said he got in a car and he went home, said she met him in the driveway, and he thought she was ready to go to the hospital because it was near her due date. So she got in a car beside him and said they was going down the road, and she told him, says, turn here, and said there was a bank there. And he says, and I pulled into the shopping center, said, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to deliver a baby right here. And he said, I got out and I went around to her side and I opened the door and said, she attacked me like a tiger. I said, you look like you've been attacked by a tiger. And I said, and good for her. I mean, his face was scratched, his arms was scratched. But it was exciting. We had fun at night. On Tuesday night, they always did the floors, cleaned the floors and waxed them and stuff. So when they would go to put the wax on, well, we closed the store at like 4 o'clock. And so we'd all sit up on the counters. We'd make a pot of coffee and get us something to eat on. We'd sit up on the counters and play cards or something because we couldn't walk on the floor. And we'd dream up things that we could do. And on the food barrel, which I didn't approve of, they put a big sign, please donate, help the Kroger employees that are underpaid or something or other. And it took I don't know how long before management ever noticed it. Well, then the Keeber guy came in one night and he put up this little Keeber cookie house. And he had like boxes of crackers. They had these hands sticking out and each one of them would have like a box of crackers or a bag of cookies and everything. So anyway, the guy decided it needed to be redecorated. And they kept the Keeber things in it for about a month. And then one night they was trying to decide on something to do. So they went over in the toy aisle and they got all these toys. Stuffed animals, I don't know, dolls, everything. And out all them windows, they put a toy in that hand instead of the Keeber thing. And everybody, all the customers thought it was so cute, and the management didn't even recognize. So the Keeber man comes in. And then we had this little zone manager, and everyone was scared of Mr. Pratt. When they see him coming, they would all run. If we weren't busy, they would all run to find something to do. And I thought, well, I ain't running. I do my work and everything, you know. And he would always come in, and I would be up front or close to the front, and he would always speak to me and ask me how everything was going, you know, and then he would head toward the back. And I didn't know, but they said he always went in the restroom. And so them guys had went in the restroom and had put honey all over the toilet seats. We had 2 stalls. They put honey all over the toilet seat. They come up front just killing themselves laughing. They said, he sat right down in it, Colleen. Said he came out rolling up his pants, and I know he came up and went straight out the door. But he would come in, and this one time he came in, and we had been really busy, and it finally had died down till we was just 1 or 2 cashiers had a customer. And everybody took off to find something to do, and I said, I'm not going anywhere. And I sat up there, and he came in, and he came over and said hello to me, and he says, "Where is everybody?" I said, "Well, when they saw you coming, they all ran to find something to do." And I said, "For some reason, they seem to be afraid of you." And he said, "And you aren't?" And I said, "Nope." I said, "I ain't met anyone yet that I'm afraid of." I said, "I do my job, and that's it." So he went around, and I guess he eventually talked to everyone. They would check everything over and everything. And he told me, he says, "I don't never worry about your all." He says, "'Cause it always looks really nice." Well, then one night I went in, and it was at Christmas time, when they had the M&Ms in the glass jars, and I was supposed to make a display. And I had the directions of how they wanted it made. So I started doing it that way, and I thought, well, this ain't gonna work, because the peanut ones, if they took a jar off the top of the plain ones, then the peanuts ones was on the next layer. I thought, well, when they pull out the peanut ones, it's gonna cave in. So anyway, I had one of the guys watch the register up front, and I went to the back and I got me some rounds, and I brought them up, and I made my own display. And I put like a jar of peanut and a jar of plain. And I had it stacked up. I think I had 4 rounds. And our night leader came over and he said, oh, our head grocery guy came in, and he came over and looked at it. He said, "You're not going to like that." I said, "Bob, it don't make sense the way they want it." I said, "If anyone wants the peanut ones," I says, "and all the plain ones are on top," I said, "then the whole thing's going to fall down after they grab out so many peanut ones." And he said, "Well, they're not going to like it." Neither shook his head and walked off. Our zone manager came in and loved it, Mr. DeBrook. He came up and he told me, he says, "I really like your display for the M&Ms. And I said, "Well, Bob said you wasn't going to like it." I said, and I told him my reasoning for the way I did it. He said, "It looks really nice," and he said, "Good idea." He always bragged about my house. My responsibility was cigarettes, Check Lane candy, and all candy. And when I got my stuff all straightened up, I would help the guys with stuff that was close to the front. And I remember one time Charlie was having to put out flour and sugar and stuff on the bake aisle. He said, "This aisle is a mess."